Hello, everybody. This is Jack with You Don't Know Jack's Music. And again, I'm here with a new person I want to interview. And I'm on a new system that I'm finding people that I don't get to normally find. So a lot of times I interview bands and things from Oklahoma and Texas and Virginia and different places I've lived and I've met. And so this time now I'm kind of branching out and I found a really awesome guy named Stephen Morgan. Did I say it right, Stephen?
You got the perfect.
Okay, so Stephen Morgan is from the UK and now living in the Netherlands. And a great thing about Stephen that I found was, first of all, I found that he did music. So we'll talk a little bit about his band here in a minute that he played with. And then, but Stephen's like improv and does comedy and has comedy shows and does stand up comedy. And so, Stephen, tell me a little bit more about what you do, kind of on that. There's so much going on,
Yeah.
I can tell.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean I do all sorts of different comedy stuff. I have since like 2015 when I started in Australia when I was living there for a few years.
Mhm.
And yeah, I took up stand up and improv comedy. But yeah, music has always been like a real love of mine throughout the whole sort of thing. I've played in various bands, written for different magazines and things like that, and just generally nerd out on different kinds of music. But nowadays, I'm performing with a group called easylaughs in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. We put on weekly shows and run courses, workshops, things like that,
Okay.
and also doing other performances in the Netherlands and sometimes in other places too. Depends on what's coming up, but not so much in the last couple of years because there's been this strange thing going on that's made that not much has happened at all.
Yeah,
But yeah, now things are getting back to normal.
that cold thing that's kept everybody in their
Uh,
houses.
yeah, I heard about
So,
that.
so that actually lets you probably kind of branch out and do some different things you've never done, right? All the
Well,
COVID stuff.
yeah. Yeah, like at the beginning it was like a refreshing like opportunity to just look into the things which were like always never had time for, you know. It was
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, look, I know all this editing stuff that I needed to do and all of this other things which were just like administrative things, not things you get excited about, but at the same time, when they add up, there's a voice in the back of your head that says, "You're not doing this. You need to get this done."
Right.
And yeah, eventually I kind of got bored of that, you know. Like I think everyone else, the novelty wore off, and suddenly it was like, "Hey, this is what it'll be like when I'm retired." Okay, it's good to know. It's good to know. This
Exactly.
is the life
So when you
I'll
so
be
when
living.
so when you get real bored and you're making videos and you're trying to be artistic, and is that how you come out with pooping in the bathroom? Is that what is that called?
Yeah,
Pooping with the
that's
door
it.
open.
Pooping with the door open.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's sometimes you just have those moments, right, where just like an idea comes to you, and like, yeah, I was just making some short little sketches and
That was funny.
basically playing around with a drum machine that I'd recently gotten, and I was kind of like, oh, look at all these beats I can get, and I just thought like, just started doing, you know, you like you got a new instrument for the first time, and you're playing around with it, and you just start like doing stupid shit, and you're just kind of like, you know what? You could actually just make that into a short sketch. That would be fine. Just do it.
That was hilarious. So that's the thing I saw. So in my description below, and I'm also, not only in podcast, but I also convert this over to my YouTube, which is Gentle Peeps Creative Studios. That's why I run all my programs through. And I'll put some links to Steven's YouTube where you can see that video and
Nice.
lots more. You have about 3,000 followers almost on there. So you got a
Yeah,
good,
I did
good,
have
good.
one video which went particularly viral last year, and then everything kind of exploded a bit. And yeah,
Which one went viral? Let me see if I watched it.
um,
Do you remember?
it was a very British thing actually. There was this parish council meeting, which
Yes.
is like, yeah. So I am
So
the
did you
one
crank
who
call them?
No, it was just well, it was basically like one of those really boring like meetings that the local municipality has, and only people who have got nothing better to do turn up, and they're having like a lot of these really small petty arguments, and they've all got
Yes.
these like beefs going on for like so long. But you add that sort of pettiness to a lot of old people handling Zoom and like technology for the first time because now they have to do it online, and it was
Yes.
just like this perfect storm of like all of the like worst side of local politics combined with the fact that that no one could really make sense of anything that was going on. And so I saw this video and I kind of, friends shared it with me, but it was like an hour and 20 minutes long. And so I was like, well, no one's going to watch that. So I edited it down.
Yeah.
And then a little while after that, it was like New York Times with, the Guardian, the BBC. I was getting all these messages like saying, where the hell did you find this video? And I'm like, well, whoa, now, they're like, are you part of the council? What is going on? And it's really weird because the people who are in that video now in the UK, like one of them in particular, has become like this low-key celebrity, is on like quiz shows and like all sorts of things like this. And
That's
I'm just
hilarious.
like, this is so weird, so unexpected, so 2022.
It's the weirdest things come out of the weirdest areas. And yeah, so that's actually funny because people were like trying to watch it, was like, is it serious? I didn't know if you were cutting in there like trying to be like funny. And then you did do I guess a video on a prank call kind of thing. So do you remember that?
I mean, I'm not. I cannot remember
I gotta
which
pull it.
one.
I gotta pull it up. Let's see. It was pretty funny. So yeah, it was a fake telephone interview that you had
Oh
posted.
yeah, okay, yeah, right. That was man. That's so long ago.
That's
That's
so
so
long
true.
ago.
That was like
So
2006 or something. Yeah,
so
but like
like
that was when you get really bored in a job and you're responsible for some of the recruitment process, and
that's
then you kind of just like realize like how rubbish and like repetitive it is when you're in a company and you're doing this and you're basically judging people on really small little things. So I just decided to have some fun and kind of submit a fake resume to
yes.
apply for a job, and then recorded the telephone interview that followed with possibly the least appropriate candidate for any job that ever existed. And that was, and it was a fun video, but it was very niche, I think.
That was fun because I think people like, especially that love comedy, I think comedians are geniuses because you'll have to come up with different things like that. And then like you not only do the comedy, but you do improv. So that means that you have to come up with something like right off the tip of your head. So that's genius for sure. And then I love when you say rubbish. What does rubbish mean again?
Like garbage.
Like garbage. That's like terrible. That's rubbish.
Yeah, it's awful. That's it.
I like all the cool different sayings you hear from different countries. Is always fantastic. Like we talked about a pre-show, we talked about, I was like, they say that's grand, or and I said, and my wife and I went to Ireland. That's where we heard that, and I thought maybe they used it in other places too.
Yeah,
And,
no, that's a very Irish phrase. That one,
that
you
one
hear
is.
that one a lot when you're in Ireland.
So coming from the UK, going to Netherlands, I'm sure it's a whole different world. I know I watched one that you talked about. There's a lot of Dutch speaking people in Netherlands.
Yeah, it's strange. It's where they all are. Yeah, the first language here is Dutch. I mean, the Netherlands.
Oh,
So, but I think that if you're talking about countries and the languages they speak, more people are fluent in English in the Netherlands as a second language
right.
than I think any other country in the world. It's very much everyone speaks it to a certain extent. I mean, if you go to the more remote areas, maybe they won't speak it very well at all.
Okay.
But it is taught, heavily in schools. And so when you get to like Amsterdam or some of the bigger cities, it very much is like you can have like you wouldn't even know the person you're speaking to is speaking a second language. It's just completely fluent, basically.
So are we talking Dutch, like German Dutch, like Guten Tag, Guten Morgen, or we?
No, so Dutch is its own language. It's I mean, it's like English, German, and Dutch all have like origins in Germanic languages.
Okay.
So there's a lot of Dutch is actually, I would it's good when you point out German because it's kind of halfway between English and German. So
that's what I kind of heard. I kind of heard like a Germanish kind of sound when you were talking about that you had a you were going to learn it. You were going to become fluent.
Right.
You said you weren't. I learned 5 words.
Yeah, that's it. It is hard to. I mean, like especially when you're like an adult trying to learn a second language. It's hard enough learning a language anyway. And I always feel a little bit kind of inferior when I'm surrounded by, especially like Swiss people who are speaking like 5 languages so well,
Oh,
and as
wow.
British, and I think you get it, in parts of the US as well, where it's like,
Yeah.
it's like English is like, it's all I know. I know maybe a little bit of French or Spanish or something, but
Right.
that's it. It's like, and when everyone else is just so fluent in English, and you're just kind of like, well, I mean, that's good for me, but it
Right.
also makes me think like, yeah, it's not so great though for them who
Right.
are always, there's always a
That,
self-consciousness, I think, because people are always a little bit like, oh, I hate speaking with a native speaker, because you use like all these idioms and metaphors and phrases which they just don't like you said yourself, like when you said that I said rubbish, and
right.
it's like that, but like again and again.
Yeah, because it's the same thing. So I know, like when we stopped in England, we stopped in London and went over to Ireland, and just even though it's English, everybody speaks English. There's so many different dialects from different types
Yeah.
of areas, and then their English, and then their word phrases that they use, or different things. And it's the same. It's the same as in Texas. There's a whole line of stuff that we say in Texas that people from other places would be like, "What in the world are they saying?" Um, and
Absolutely, yeah.
and sometimes my Texas accent and words come out more. My wife cracks up sometimes because some of the things I say are very, very old school Texas, phrases.
Oh
So
yeah.
and
What,
so
like
so
what, have you got any
so oh
examples?
yeah. So we're saying, are you heading to the store? And he said, I'm fixing to. Yep, I'm fixing to.
Ah, okay.
Fixing
Fixing
to.
to.
Fixing to head over there. Yeah. Then
Okay.
you say, hey, you want to go with us? Yeah, you want to? You want to? Yeah, you want to?
Yanti.
You want to?
Yanti.
Yeah, and then there's like
Yeah.
just hundreds of them. I don't even know it's half the time I say
Yeah.
them.
Right.
Say we got the sort of 3-legged cat and ass kicking contest. So there's all kinds
Not
of.
heard that one before.
You never heard that one before?
No.
Finer than a frog's hair.
But fire than the frogs here?
Yeah, she is
Or
finer than a frog's hair.
not hear that, no. Yeah, wild.
so
This is
so
exactly what I mean. Like, this is now it's suddenly English feels like a second language to me.
Yeah, so I went to the Netherlands, and I was like, and they said, "Hey, you want to go over there?" And I said, I'm about to, fixing to go over there." And they'd be like,
Yeah, fixing to go.
"What are you
Yeah.
fixing? What are
Yeah,
you about to make?" So yeah,
that's it.
I'm sure you being comedy, you've heard Jeff Foxworthy, right? The comedian
Oh yeah, yeah,
from years
yeah.
ago. So of course, he's got the real Southern accent, and talks about all the redneck phrases, and if you're a redneck if you do this and that. And it's sad when you look at some of the stuff and go, yeah, that was how I grew up. I remember stuff like just like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you get a
But
lot of that. There's quite a few different British comedians who do that sort of playing into the things which you don't remember that you remember, but as soon as someone says it, it's like, oh yeah.
yeah, so there was several of them on, I think, on YouTube and TikTok. They were English people, and they were comparing their English UK type of sayings
Yeah,
to American sayings. They're like, do you say like crisp? Like, you want some crisp? Well, of course
right.
we don't say crisp here. We say you want some French
Yeah,
fries or chips, and
yeah.
so when you
But
learn,
chips is a funny one though, because like I find that more and more. I mean, I know that like, yeah, in British English, crisps is chips as it would be in American English, but more
right?
and more there's like it's blurring, like because like a lot of Americanisms are becoming more and more common
Are they?
in like say the UK. So for example, like you'll go to the supermarket or something, and a lot of brands of chips, in
Mhm.
American English, will have chips on there, and
Okay.
like. And because it's one of those ones which I think that, pretty much everyone knows that, well, as far as in the UK at least, that there is this kind of chips and crisps thing going on. But at the same time, because of the fact that we still call, French fries chips, then
Hmm.
it's kind of like it's getting to the point where it's like someone says like, "Oh, do you want some chips?" It's kind of like, well, which ones do you mean now?
Yeah, you mean
It's like
French
you got to be
fries
more
or
specific. Yeah,
potato
yeah.
chips? Yeah.
Which one? Come on.
My wife loves fish and chips, so she's always getting that.
Yeah,
We go to a lot of Irish pubs and in America, and that's one of our
yeah.
favorite things. And
I mean, it's just like just so much fried stuff. I mean, what can go wrong?
yeah, exactly. Who doesn't love fried food? So it's pretty
Exactly.
fantastic. So we just moved to Virginia, so we're learning a whole new area,
Ah,
and again, same kind of dialects are a little different and accents are a
Yeah.
little different. But then again, when we travel, we love to like to hear that, and so we love the England and I love Australian accents and definitely Irish accents. But in the
Yeah.
Netherlands, there's such a where you're at, there's such a mixture, right? So you're having a lot of different ones uh, coming at you, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Although one thing I do find kind of strange moving to a new part of the world as well. Well, I mean, not so new for me anymore, but there is still some moments. So one of the things that I remember happening here around accents is that basically there was like a bunch of guys, all some Dutch, some Belgian, and basically there's like a part of the conversation where one of them just started speaking Dutch, and like you could tell he was saying something funny because I didn't know enough Dutch to quite follow, but it
Right.
wasn't that funny. But everyone else was like cracking up so hard, apart from the like one or two Belgian guys,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, what is happening here? Because what he's saying is clearly not that funny, and the Belgian guys are like not enjoying it.
Mhm.
And then basically what I found out is that what he is like a Dutch guy doing a Belgian accent,
Oh,
and so to the British guy here, I'm kind of like, kind of sounds the same. I'm sorry. It just, to me, it's all Dutch-ish. It's
right.
all this, but to them, they were just like, this, it's just that thing, right? It's just to them, it was just hearing the different ways you pronounce like a particular letter, a particular part of the word,
Right.
and things like that. So yeah, it's a funny how it's universal,
Yeah.
that sort of humor.
So how is the stand up there? Are you still doing that right now? Are you still doing stand up
Yeah,
some
yeah.
in the comedy shows there in the Netherlands?
Yeah, I mean it's good. It's a healthy community, and like even in the 4 years or so I've been here in the Netherlands, it's grown massively, or at least the English speaking part of it
Okay.
has, which I'm most familiar with.
Right.
There's like, even, I mean, I've recently moved to Utrecht, which is in the center of the Netherlands, and yeah, actually towards the tail end of the pandemic, they opened a new comedy club here, and I was like, damn, that's bold,
So what is the name of that town again you live in?
Utrecht.
Utrecht. Is that how you
It's
say it?
Utrecht,
Utrecht.
like yeah, with the T on the end.
Utrecht.
Utrecht.
I get it. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I would like to be able to tell people, here's where I live. I would like read it right here.
Yeah, it's just like, just really. No, honestly, there are some places in this country I just genuinely, for the first while, I was like, I've got no chance. Of, I just, yeah, like
Yeah,
you said, just like, please, just these letters. I'm pretty sure it's a word.
yeah, you had that one in your stand-up comedy you talked about. It was like a long, like you were there. I guess that's where you were doing the improv at, and it was like
Oh yeah.
super
Oh,
long
maybe it's in
name.
Wageningen, maybe.
Yes. I was like, oh my God, you had to like practice that like 30 times before you go out
You
there.
do. It does take. Actually, this is a funny story around one of the particular places on the west coast. So the most famous beach in the Netherlands, and that's kind of like, it's not saying much. There's not great beaches here, but
Uh-huh.
it's this place called Scheveningen. Now,
Okay.
exactly, Scheveningen. It's known for being the hardest place to pronounce for non-Dutch people. And the
Okay.
funny thing about it is that this is a genuine fact that during the Second World War, what a lot of Dutch soldiers did, if they saw someone they didn't know, they would say, like, what's the name of the seaside resort in the Netherlands? And if the guy says Scheveningen,
Mhm.
they know it's a German because he's now pronounced it the German way, and then they shot the guy.
Oh
Is the
wow.
story. Yeah, it's just like crazy to think that that this was the test, is whether you can pronounce that place.
Wow, very, very interesting. So, all right, let me get back into the music now. That was fun. So I was looking and I was listening to some of the Neon Highwire. So was that an old
Right,
band like
right.
2008 to 2016 that you were
That's
in?
it.
And
Yeah, yeah.
so how did that go? Was that more for English people in England type of band or?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that much like with the US, like English music, you kind of, by default, just by the fact that you're either from the USA, from the UK, it immediately makes the music you make just more international, right? Because
Mhm.
a lot of people worldwide, well, a lot of famous artists worldwide are American, British.
Yeah,
Obviously, there are famous artists from all over, but I
right.
think that in a lot of other countries, there is more of an obstacle, like the music industries are really set to pick up, like, say, smaller acts in like the UK, the US, and Australia to an extent, but they do have their own sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's exceptions, but yeah, we were just making electronic music at a time when electronic music was just something that we were all getting into. There's like three of us, and we were all from like quite like rock backgrounds, a little bit of post rock, a little bit heavier stuff. And then we sort of started to discover like synthesizers, drum machines, and things like that. And it just kind of prompted this project because we just started having these jams together with all these new toys, I guess. And we were like, hey, this is really cool. And it just went from there.
Nice. I know. Yeah, I definitely noticed the electronics, keyboard type styles in there. And of course, that's a whole other skill because you got to learn piano plus, I guess all the other beats and buttons to the keyboard. So that's, so I mean,
it was, because the guitars were all like, we knew that part just fine. But yeah, that was definitely like there were three of us, and we basically, none of us were like great on piano. All of us, we'd had a bit of a background on it and could do sort of some basic stuff. But yeah, it did sort of like add to, it was just like a new thing to play. So yeah, whenever we had a new bit that was based on the synth or based on keyboard or something like that, it was very much like, not just like with a guitar where you pick it up and go like, oh yeah, I got it. Okay, let's jam it out. It was more like, okay, I got it. Now let me go home and play it again and again for like a week because I'm not going to be able to do it until I do that again. Yes,
my piano skills from years ago. So I know middle C. I put my hands down. I know C. Then I'm lost. I mean, I remember that. That's about all I remember from. That was 3 years of piano lessons. That's how good that did me.
That's it. 3 years. Yeah.
That's about all I can remember now. So a lot older. So the band now that you're doing, what's the name of it?
So I've only recently, so until not so long ago, actually, I was not really doing so much musically. I was doing some soundtrack stuff, so for animations that other people were doing, and some little bits for the comedy stuff and things like that, and just some fun things here and there. But yeah, I have recently started. I mean, very recently now, a new thing, and it's in that kind of early days where you're still just getting to know the other people, and you're like, is this going to work? Is this, are we got that chemistry, or are we actually going to want the same things out of the songs that we write? So it's funny how much that sort of phase is like, I guess, dating, it's like you really are just trying to get a feel for each other, but in a way that you're not outright being like, this is what I want and this is what I need, because then you're too full on. But it's so far so good, it's definitely, I'd say it's a little, from what the stuff that because I'm joining this pre-existing band, and I'd say it's a bit sort of reminiscent of maybe Depeche Mode, that kind of sound.
Love
maybe
Depeche
a little
Mode,
bit more. Yeah, it's got that kind of like dark synth, like electronic, but like, there's guitars, drums, and everything, so it has a fuller sound.
Yeah.
So it seems pretty cool.
So you talk about that, like bands from so Depeche Mode from the UK, right? Are they in that area? Yeah. And then David Bowie was from the UK. I mean, you can think of all kinds of wonderful artists. The Cure, one of my favorite, The Cure is from there. And so you talk about that dark side, like the Depeche Mode, The Cure, all those from back from the 80s that are still playing, still touring. And if you get that sound going, people are still loving that. They're, we were at a restaurant last night, and they were playing The Cure on the overhead of the restaurant. It's like, I wasn't, like back in the 80s, that was underground. That wasn't even like just a music in the background. So
it's funny actually to think that, because the Cure were definitely, when they were first around, were much more of a fringe. I mean, they were popular, but they were in that sort of way that they were for the weirdos.
Yes.
But like, it does feel now like this. There you go. But like now, it does definitely feel like, like you heard so many of the songs, I guess, on things like soundtracks and like things like that. And people don't sort of, they don't see Robert Smith, so they don't get to see the giant hair and get to see what they look like. They just hear the music and they kind of like go, hey, this is pretty good. And I guess then it just gets a much more normal audience.
And then they go see Robert Smith and they're like, holy crap, who is this guy? So,
yeah, exactly.
Of course, I was loving it. I was like, he's the coolest ever back when, because of course I followed him, had posters and all that good stuff. So and then the same thing with the Depeche Mode. I don't know if you remember a band called Camouflage that I used to love. And
oh no, I don't know them.
So there's so many of them that had that electronic, dark phase kind of music back then that were so similar but they're yet their own style. Susie and the Banshees, and
Yeah,
and so and
yeah.
Robert Smith played with Susie and the Banshees for a little while. He was a guitar player
Okay.
for them. So that was
Oh,
very, very interesting. But so it definitely, there's all kinds of music I definitely love in the U.S. For sure. But I think a lot more times I think of bands that I love, and different things I've listened to have been from England or the U.K. or that area. Now, is that the same? Is that the right
yeah.
to say? England, U.K., same thing, isn't it? United Kingdom.
No, England is like small. England is part of the UK,
Okay.
but it's don't worry about it because honestly, it's so confusing. I just call it whichever one you want. It's fine.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, because we do know that, and I learned when I went up there that like Scotland, I'm like, oh, Scotland's different. No, Scotland's part of the UK, and then so is
Yeah,
Northern Ireland. So we learned a lot going up there. So that was very
yeah.
interesting. But I always thought, I don't know anything about where even that Netherlands, is it up by Wales? Is it
Netherlands kind of geographically, it's like you got the UK and then directly to the east, like parallel to the south part, is the
Yeah.
Netherlands. And the
Oh,
Netherlands
okay.
is tiny. It is a tiny country.
Okay.
It's so small that basically like we're living in the middle right now, and there's probably nowhere in this entire country you couldn't get to in less than 2 hours by car.
Wow. Okay. So it's actually
Yeah.
smaller than Virginia, where I live, our state.
I think it might well be. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
what got you to want to move to the Netherlands and stay there? Like, it's like,
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, like it was my ex's work that
Mhm.
first brought me to this country. So that was, and from on a personal level, I kind of felt like it was something that I wanted to experience, to live in a country that wasn't the one that I was from.
Right.
I couldn't quite. I mean, I'd lived in London for a long time, despite being from Wales, so that was a little different. But I kind of, I felt like there was something that just didn't know what it was, but I knew that I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And then so I lived in Australia for 4 years, and that was kind of it was interesting. You get a really high standard of living there. It's a cool country, and it's got a lot of its own things going on because it's so isolated from the rest of the world. Everything is so damn far from Australia. It's crazy.
Right.
Even to get to like the nearest country is like 5 hour flight. It's like the opposite of the Netherlands in terms of
Right.
accessibility.
Yeah.
But then that relationship came to an end after we moved to the Netherlands, and I was kind of like, actually, you know what? I like this country a lot.
Okay.
I'm not ready to go to the UK. Things aren't particularly great there. And I kind of am enjoying this way of living. And so, I've been here ever since.
All right. Check out the Netherlands. So I do have a few questions here. These are questions that Steve has that he already has answers to, right? Or I said Stephen. We do that in America. We shorten everything.
Oh no, either is fine, honestly.
So here's a question I wanted. There are a couple of them here that I really wanted to like hear the answers. And being that my channel is about music, what 5 albums would you take with you if you were stranded on a desert island?
Okay, this is a toughie, and it changes daily.
Right.
But which is not good for a desert island situation because that's not a choice. But I'd say probably one of them would be Travels with Myself and Another by the band Feature of the Left would be one. It's a band I've seen live like 15 times now, I think. They're from my home country. They're not particularly, no, they're pretty small, but
I've never heard of them, so yeah, I had to check them out.
Yeah, they've got a pretty strong cult following, and their singer has got some of the most acerbic lyrics you've kind of heard, and it just suits the heavy. It's pretty damn heavy too, but I like it a lot. Then perhaps Hell Yeah by the Maishi, which is it's a weird one because it's one of those albums where I can't explain it, but like even though it came out in like 2007, probably listen to it at least once a month still something about it, something that it's the way I always think of it when I hear it is it's like as if it's almost like it's just a really thrashy, like really sort of intense and fast and like loads of ideas in their album, but there's something like almost religious about it. It's not religious, but there's something about the way that like the song structures are, the way that the vocals come in as well. It's like almost like a gospelish thing going on, but at the same time it's not. It really isn't. But it's kind of, I guess, you spend enough time listening to an album and you get to that point where you just start this, you start to see every single, you can deconstruct it onto like a note by note basis, millisecond by millisecond. And that one I definitely haven't gotten sick of. Third one would probably be Alopecia by Y, which was from 2008. It's I got the opportunity to interview Yoni Wolf, the guy behind Y, a couple of years ago. They came touring. I think they're from Oakland, California. They came touring Amsterdam, and they were playing that album in full, and that was a really sort of cool experience. I enjoyed it a lot, and was another one of those albums where I'm kind of like, from the very opening note to the very last, there's not a note that I would change. I just think it's perfection. It was just, there's a lot of music that guy's made that's been kind of, some of it good, some of it sort of a little bit failed experiments, but that was the one point when he just got everything right, and I absolutely adore that one. So what is that? That's three. Let's see.
Two more.
That's it. I would say maybe, I'd say the Emergency and I by the Dismemberment Plan.
Yeah, I'm gonna learn so many new bands. Okay.
Okay, so that was another one which I actually ended up. They played some reunion shows, I think about 10 years ago or so, and I ended up like drunkenly finding out about them while on a night out, and bought plane tickets, and booked a hostel in Harlem, and bought tickets to see them 2 consecutive nights at the Bowery Ballroom, and then woke up the next day and forgot that any of that had happened, and then had that beautiful moment of realization where I was like, holy shit, did I? And like, that, first of all, the moment of like euphoria of like, oh my God, that happened. And then it's all like, I've booked it all and I'm going to be going to America. And then like, the 5 minutes later where it's like, how much the hell am I doing? I haven't got this money, of just like drunkenly booking flights to America. I don't recommend it, but it was a great trip. I mean, I got to interview the band while I was there as well. I basically messaged them saying, hey, I'm, this sounds stupid, but I'm coming from the UK for this show, can I interview you? And they were like, yeah, sure. So that was a fun one. Number 5, I'd say maybe, what's it called? It's Worry by Jeff Rosenstock.
Okay. 5 bands I've never heard of, so this is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Jeff Rosenstock. It's kind of punky, but it sounds kind of a little bit, I don't know. It's like punk music, but like lyrically and all the kind of themes and delivery. Like the guy's in his 30s. He's not singing about changing the world. He's singing about like, damn, I'm not keeping in touch with my friends much anymore. And it's just something about like the whole way that like his view on the world, the way that he kind of looks at things, and his vocal delivery is like frantic and just sounds like every last like word is just the last one he's ever going to deliver. And yeah, something about that, I'm always kind of a bit like, damn, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. But those would be my 5.
That's interesting because, like I said, I've never, like, you hear different people in different areas. I've never heard of any of those. So it's people around here probably have not heard of some of those. So and that's what I love about
4 of them American as well.
That's what's even crazy. I'm sure some people have heard of them. My wife's probably knows more music than I do, so she probably has heard of some of them. But that's one of my things I love about my channel is that I'm able to shout out music that people don't know. So, and I love shouting out new bands, and that's kind of what I do. So that right there is 5 good bands that some people may not know that they may check out, and you never know what you're going to find, because that's how I fell in love with several bands I love, is because somebody said, hey, check these guys out, or hey, listen to them, or something to that effect. And so that's pretty cool. And then I had to ask, this one's very interesting, is martial arts in your 30s. So are you a black belt?
No, I'm blue belt brown tip in Taekwondo. And that was, it was, I was, like I mentioned before, that I took up comedy when I moved to Australia. It was kind of that liberating moment where I realized that like I don't know anyone here in this country, and it's like all of the things which I did before and like were what I was about are like no longer the case. There's no commitments. I'm like, I got to find a job, I got to work out what the hell it is that I'm going to do, who I'm going to hang out with, things like that. And
Right.
yeah, so the comedy was like one of the things that I took up because I was like, why not? I got the time now. And
Yeah.
the other one, which was yeah, taekwondo, and that was just based on the fact that I was kind of trying to find what is. I always wanted to try a martial art, and I
Mhm.
was like, what's the one that's closest to where I live?
There you go. Okay.
And so, you know, it's a real, you know, it's not the most inspirational sort of message as to why I chose that particular martial art,
So
why it
so
was that it
so
spoke to me.
if you don't laugh at Steven's jokes, he will punch you with his taekwondo moves.
That's it. That's it. I've got excuse. It's a good sort of backup method if things go wrong with the
There you
comedy.
go. There you go. So one of my friends is a comedian, in Texas, and he's actually a police officer full time, but does comedy on the side. And so I always
Yeah.
one of the things we always thought is like, so tell everyone. He said most comedians hate this, so you're probably gonna hate this. Tell me your favorite joke.
Oh yeah. 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 No.
Do they hate that?
Yes.
The comedians hate that when people say, "Tell me your funniest joke. Tell me something funny."
Yeah, I mean it's yeah, it depends on the tone, right? Because you know, like sometimes people will say that because they genuinely kind of like, you know, it's the first response of a question that they can ask you. But sometimes people are just saying because they know that they're just being a bit of a dick, you know.
Oh, okay.
They
Yeah.
know they know that they're just kind of
So they're being
it's
a wanker, as they call it in the UK.
there you go. There, now that's a good colloquialism. Yeah, that one. That one I use sometimes.
I'm not gonna make you tell a joke, but I just thought that was funny. I was like, I know
No,
that.
it is a it's a funny one, I mean, especially with my style as well. Because I mean, like I do have a few jokes, but like
Right.
it's not. It's more. I more drop them in because it becomes more of a surprise because you weren't expecting any
Right,
jokes.
because you're doing improv and stand up, so you're delivering a story. I'm understanding
Right.
when you do that,
Exactly.
and so your
I
joke
try. Yeah.
punchlines are part of a story, and that's what is
Exactly.
what is interesting.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, so it's very much like you've got this thing where essentially you start off with the actual story and you start like breaking it down into what's actually interesting here, what cut out the fat, what's not necessary, and then just find sort of take little bits that are still boring and kind of like go, oh, how do you like say this but in a way that's actually funny, you know? Can you
yeah,
make something of this? And it's one of those things, yeah, because then it becomes that it's all part of a bit, you know, that it's like the
right,
context that everything builds up. But obviously, you know, it's not there. I mean, there are some great one-liner comedians who just
right,
like have those ones which you can just, you know, they just get it right out there. But
right.
yeah, that's never really been my style.
Yeah, and that's why I noticed when I've listened to some of your stuff, you're definitely a storyteller, getting into it. The Dutch guy or the people from Netherlands that speak Dutch and tell me your speak Dutch, and you I don't know what you was doing.
Yeah.
You can't. That's what they do. Like, how's your Dutch coming? Speak.
it's a
You're
there's
like,
a there's a
let's see if
lot
I
of this.
can. Oh, look over there. Or something.
Yeah.
So your storytelling is great. I love it. So, um,
Oh, thanks, Jack.
but anyway, so I'm going to tell you again. So I'll be like I said, I'm on podcast, but I also put this to my YouTube, and then I shout out my Instagram and different things. But I'll put below the links because you have, first of all, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, but you're also on LinkedIn, which is kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
you've got all those links there that we'll put below. So if you want to check out Stephen, especially people here that watch my channel from from Oklahoma and Texas, Virginia, and parts of the United States that maybe have never heard of Stephen, and so
Yeah.
kind of it's getting out new music, getting out new comedy, getting out people have never heard of somebody. That excites me. That's why I love what I do, because I want to make sure that everybody in the world hears something different every day. You shouldn't, be stuck to the same thing every single day. You gotta branch out and learn new stuff. So I
That's a
definitely,
great way to be. Great way
yeah.
to be.
So I definitely appreciate your time, Stephen. And anything else you want to throw in there
No,
before?
no, yeah, that's been a lot of fun chatting, and
Uh,
yeah, just check out my stuff. As Jack said, he'll share it all. And
okay.
thank you so much for the questions.
All right. And just remember always to go subscribe, like, and comment on a YouTube page on Gentle Peeps Creative Studios. And we'll check you out next time. Thanks for watching.